You steal my spleen. Fine. I steal everything you own. By Geminycain. Chapter 15. Bad Loser. Tim did not regret sending Prue to follow the generals rather than Talia. But right now, as he sits with a cup of lukewarm coffee and watches the recording of one of his hidden cameras in the Batcave from yesterday night, he wishes he had had time to find a better way to keep up with the woman. The best way to hide something is not by having the best hiding spot, it is by making sure no one is looking in the first place. And Talia was messing that up for Tim right now. Even if he had not heard their conversation, Tim could still piece an idea together. League went boom, and yes, my blood son, Rage. Father is a prick. Beloved, I will rip whoever did this head off, yada yada. Which, in of itself, did not leave too large a problem, but it was still a problem nonetheless. As hard as it is to admit, Bruce is the world's greatest detective and Tim is the second. Even if he had hidden things from Bruce since he was a child, it did not mean it was easy to do so, although he was very good at it. Tim closed his eyes and took a breath. He let his thoughts spread out like a string finding a thread. Eyewitnesses from Tim's time in the League. Raish had been very cagey and isolated Tim as much as possible. Z, Owens, and Prue had been some of the only people who were allowed to spend time with him, and the ninja and assassins who all witnessed Raish's defeat at Tim's hand were dead, either by the hand of the Council of Spiders or Raish himself. Not a threat. Recordings from being pushed out of a window would not show anything. Raish never mentioned how they knew each other. Raish had called him detective, but past, Tim had already thought of clipping that out in case it would spark questions. It was not a threat. Raish had a single abandoned base in Gotham, which he used during the same visit. Tim did not know what was in it, but there was a very likely case Raish had files on Tim in that base, which could be a threat. Bruce would think of the possibility of a base hidden in Gotham. This could be a threat. Other than that, nothing. Nothing could lead back to him. His eyes opened and he leaned back in his chair, with fingers sliding down and tightening in his hair as he groaned. Tati was sleeping on the desk. Tim left a note for Tam to feed her when he was gone. When Tim walked out into the living room, it was in full gear, earning him a couple of looks. Hey buddy, where are you going? Bart was the first to ask. Gotham. Tim put on his mask. I have an errand. Simultaneously, his team used their super speed to stand in his way to the entrance. Want one of us to go with you? Cassie questioned. There is still a no-matter rule in Gotham. Besides, I do not need assistance for this. He tried to walk around them, but they moved with him. Tim took off his helmet solely to show him his impassive expression. You're all acting like mother hens. Cassie, Bart, and Con looked considerate of his words, but not undeterred. In our defense, the last time you had a small errand in Gotham, you came home with a surgical scar. Tim opened his mouth, then closed it. Okay, that was a fair point. Is this errand that business? Con asked in a way that was meant to come off as casual. It did not. I know you guys do not like my family. No, that is so silly. Would never. Tim raises a brow, clearly unimpressed by their blatant poor performance. Con sighed and dropped the act. Okay, listen, We don't hate your family, Tim. We love Cass, we love Harley and Ivy, and we love Selena, too. He spoke with a smile, but his eyes held concern. But when it comes to the rest of them, I mean, it's... Despite having an ocean's worth of words swimming around in his head, Khan found himself at a loss of them. Tim sighed. I understand, he said, and he meant it. He had good friends, friends who worried. It is not that business. It is simply cleanup. He answered their previous question. Official or unofficial? Unofficial. I will be quick. They gave each other a calculated look before moving a bit to give Tim space. Just remember the mission tonight, Cassie reminded, and be careful. They had a mission at midnight to search through one of Lex's labs, but Tim should be able to make it in time. I will try to avoid complications, he said with a light smile. And I will be careful. If I'm not back in the time, you guys just leave without me. They all hugged each other before he left. It's not often Dick found himself being afraid of a new villain. Most of the time, it was one-hit wonders, if not just one-hit blunders. Criminals who thought they were clever because they committed a single well-thought-out plan, only to then brag about it from the shadows, thinking they were safe until they got themselves caught. Whoever this new villain was not that. It was months since the League of Assassins had been destroyed, but whoever had done it remained silent, silent enough for the Bat and every other hero and villain not to notice what had happened until now. By now, if it was a normal villain, Batman would at the very least have an idea of who they were, if not caught the person responsible. But there was nothing. No face, no name, no nothing. The only thing they could be relatively sure about was that the person they were looking for was a male, since Raish did not respect women enough to have a male as his heir. Dick had not felt this much on edge over a villain since the Red Hood appeared. The heads in duffel bags, the personal information. To think it had been his younger brother under that helmet still shook him. Damian could not so much be described as on edge, but rather as on the edge of stabbing whoever pissed him off or looked at him the wrong way. Not that Dick blamed him. He could understand why he would feel angry over losing the place he grew up, even if said place was a hellscape. You think we're gonna find anything here? Nightwing questioned as he let a scrimma slide along the old railing. Father has us searching in the narrowest of corners in hopes of an unseen miracle. This is a waste of time, Robin hissed. Since Gotham was the last location where they were sure the League was active, Bruce had sent them on a goose chase through Gotham in hopes of finding any leftovers of its time here. So far, no luck. There's nothing wrong with being thorough, Robin. Damian huffed. Speak for yourself. My talents are wasted on such insignificant tasks. Being a hero is not all fighting and glory. Sometimes being a hero means you have to do shit work. Dick paused. Don't tell Agent A I said shit. Twice. Damian muttered displeased, but refrained from complaining any further. Dick smiled to himself and ruffled Damian's hair, which made him snap in response and yell a couple of profanities. Dick just smiled. He was proud of how far Damian had come. A sound from a distant hallway made them both freeze. They gave each other a nod and drew their weapons. Sneaking forward carefully, they crept down the hall as quietly as mice until they came to the end, where a door stood closed. Dick opened it, intentionally keeping Damian behind him. A couple of shelves and an active computer. Someone was here. The screen was still loading something. Dick took a silent step inside, then another. When he heard a sound from the ceiling, it was too late. A figure fell from above and pushed Dick to the floor with a weapon to his neck. A sense of recognition flooded him when he managed to see the scary figure pinning him down. "No way!" he thought excitedly. "You gotta be kidding me," Tim thought to himself as he saw who he had pinned down under his foot. On the other side of the door, Damian yelped in shock before recollecting himself and aiming his sword. "Wait!" Dick stopped him. "You know this cretin." "Of course I do. This is Tim." Damian narrowed his eyes as he looked at Tim. "What are you doing here?" he sneered. Tim retracted his bowstaff and stepped off Dick's chest, deciding to ignore the duo as he unplugged the now finished transfers of the League files. "Answer me when I speak to you," Damian screeched. Tim ignored the tiny gremlin. I like the suit." Dick blocked his way out, apparently feeling conversational. "We haven't really talked since family dinner. I've been calling you." Tim fought off the urge to say, "Take a hint," and give Dick the middle finger on his way out. "I've been busy." The static voice sounded through his mask. "Still am." He made another attempt towards the door, but Dick grabbed the drive with the files from over Tim's shoulder. Okay, this was getting annoying. The blank mask turned to Dick, who made a strained laugh. "What is this?" He tried to sound cheery, to remove the tension. "Give it back." Tim's voice was even, not revealing the irritation behind it. Dick put the drive in one of the hidden pockets in his suit as a grin traced his face. "Fight me for it." Memories of petty fights with Dick over the last of Alfred's cookies flashed behind Tim's eyes. "Fight me for it." Tim looked at Dick as the words stabbed him in the chest like a memory of something lost. Was this a joke to him? "Winner keeps extra dinner," he rhymed, right before Tim punched him in the throat. It was lucky the room they were in was relatively big, or else Dick would not have been able to step back and dodge the second hit from Tim. He needed a second to regain his breath. Dick might have panicked a bit when Tim had tried to leave so soon, and he might have pushed it a bit with the drive thing, but at the moment, Dick had not known what to do. He barely got a second to recover before he had to both dodge and block another attack. Tim has gone faster, he noticed right before a third punch managed to hit him in the side. They did not use weapons, but there was still some surprisingly real punch to it. To the side, he could see Damian looking displeased, but he did not interrupt. The next attack was made by Dick. 3 quick strikes, all of which Tim managed to dodge, which was not surprising since his brother had always fought with more defense than offense. Well, except now, apparently. Dick got an elbow to the jaw immediately after Tim managed to dodge an attempted attack on his legs. Dick was quicker than Tim, though, and he managed to get an elbow to his brother's ribs. Using the opening, he sweeps Tim's feet off right under him, making him land on the floor. Dick grinned victoriously before reaching a hand for Tim to grab. It made Dick happy when Tim took it and let himself be helped to his feet. Tim turned to the door as soon as Dick had helped him up. "Whoa, hey, no need to leave, Tim." He tried to grab out after his brother, but Tim pulled his arm to himself. "Of course Drake wants to leave after such a humiliating defeat," Damian spoke with his nose raised. "He does not even have honor enough to face us." When Tim passed Damian on his way out the door, he stopped, turning his expressionless mask toward the kid and said, "At least I have some honor, Damian. Unlike you, the living parasite who only has his blood as an excuse for his family to care about him." Dick's jaw dropped. Did Tim just say that? What the hell, Tim? Dick had worked very hard to make sure Damian felt loved in the family and overcome his experience with the League of Assassins. Tim knew that. "You don't call your brother a parasite!" he yelled as he held Damian in a hug, both for comfort and also to prevent Damian from attacking Tim. A static laugh rang through the building. Tim kept walking away, and this time Dick let him. After having calmed Damian to a point where he would not run off immediately, Dick let go of him. Damian, I'm so sorry. I don't know why he... It does not matter, Damian dismissed. He is simply a sore loser that we do not need to waste our time with. He spoke with spite. Dick sighed. At least Damian was somewhat understanding. I just want you guys to get along, he said. Damian made a t sound. Had he pushed him too much in that fight? Tim had been having a lot of outbursts lately. Maybe it was something unrelated. The fight had probably been a mistake. He sighed again as he reached into his pocket for the drive. It was never his intention to keep it or anything. When he won, he had planned to return it. The pocket was empty. Dick tried to rummage his hand through it again. Empty. Damian, have you seen the... Damian was gone. Shit! Dick said for the third time. A good thief does not only steal things successfully, they also make sure no one steals it back. Tim mumbled to himself as he put the drive into a secure pocket in his utility belt. His watch informed him that he had plenty of hours to get back home. The bike was hidden in an empty construction site under a tarp, and he was about to unravel it when he heard someone behind him. He quickly turned, ready to throw a knife at the person until he saw who it was. Fuck off, Damian. He waved a dismissing hand over his shoulder as he turned around. Rake! The gremlin seethed with the anger of 10 wet murderous kittens. Tim ignored him and lifted the tarp of his bike. He heard the unsheathing of a sword and groaned eternally. He turned just in time to redirect Damian's swing so it would not hit him or his bike. Face me, you coward! The child yelled as he stood before Tim, ready to strike again. Usually, Tim would not escalate the conflict. If he did, he would get hurt. If he did not, he would also get hurt. If he fought back, he would be reprimanded for it. He had never fought Damian before, not really. Tim took off his mask/helmet and laid it on his bike. A part of him hoped this would feel good. Damian came charging at him again. That's a move from the league, Tim thought. He knew because he had learned it too. In a movement that lasted less than a second, Damian was on the ground. Tim made a couple of bouncy steps, almost as if dancing, while Damian got up to a couple of feet beside him. Stop taunting me! Stop falling on your nose. The child roared as he came at Tim again, this time with a move that left fewer openings to take advantage of. It was a good strategy, not that it mattered. As Damian swung at him, Tim grabbed his wrist and twisted it behind his back, forcing him to drop the sword. By all means, Damian was an excellent fighter, but Tim had been trained by the exact same people as Damian and then some. Damian might have trained his whole life, but he had never seen the likes of Lady Shiva. Tim saw every opening. With opponents like Dick, he was not always fast enough to reach them, but Damian? With him were no such problems. To the side, Tim bounced on the tips of his feet again. He kicked Damian's sword to the side. This must be quite humiliating for you, Tim hummed. Fighting is supposed to be the only thing you are good at. Damian came at him again, blinded by rage. Tim did not even feel the countering with a trained move this time. Instead, he punched Damian square in the face, getting blood on his gloves from a bloody nose, grabbed him by the collar, and threw him into a wooden banister. Tim kneeled to where the boy sat. I told you I was done with your family, Damian. That includes you, he said, letting his icy eyes stare down at the little demon. He got up and turned to his bike. Wait! Tim could hear Damian getting to his feet again. I can still fight you, you waste of... A thrown knife flew only an inch away from Damian's face, embedding itself in the wood behind him. Damian could feel his heart pounding in his chest. Tim took his arm down. The coldness in his eyes made Damian flinch. You have lost, Damian. Do not bring more dishonor upon yourself than you already have. He turned towards his bike again. He got it up, standing, and was about to reach for his mask when... Rake! At this point, it was just annoying. Tim turned around to tell the kid off when Tim's brain cut off. Huh. That did not happen unless he... Oh. The knife was no longer in the wall.